Hey guys, it's David from Automotive Press. As you know, we now have the Crown models here in North America, both in the US and Canada. It's a big deal because the nameplate Crown, or the branding behind Crown, means something very substantial. Here in North America, maybe not so much, but in Japan where I grew up, as you know, I was born and raised there, the name Crown means something very substantial. In fact, I remember growing up thinking about the Crown because some of the richer friends that I had maybe owned the Crown, their maybe father or mother owned the Crown, and it meant a big deal. And unfortunately, my family couldn't afford it at the time, but I was always inspired by the name Crown because it stood for a true flagship of Toyota. And yeah, you heard it right. It's not Lexus, but it's actually Crown, at least in the past, because we didn't have a Lexus in Japan for many, many years. In fact, Lexus is maybe still important in Japan, but maybe not as important as the name Crown. In any case, what I do have here is a 2025 Toyota Crown Signia, and I just want to see how good the quality is. So let me do a proper quality check. Then I'll do the same thing inside and let you know if I like the vehicle. So let me tell you if I'm impressed with the quality control of the Crown Signia. Let's go. Welcome back. So as you guys know, Crown has been in the US for a couple of years now. And for me, who was born and raised in Japan, the name Crown means a lot. Because in Japan, before Lexus, Crown was the true flagship of Toyota. Yes, we had Toyota Century, but no one bought Toyota Century except for corporations and big companies that were chauffeuring their executives. But for normal people, for average people, or even wealthy people, Crown nameplate was the flagship. So I'm really happy that the Crown brand is here in North America again. So even though we don't have all the models of Crown here in North America, I'm really excited because at least we have 2 out of the 4 models. We have the Crown Signia, which is this one. It's basically a station wagon, but they're calling it crossover. Sleek, low profile, drives pretty good as well. And then we have the Crown Sedan, or the normal Crown, which is kind of like a crossover, but it has a trunk, so we call that Crown Sedan. But both models are an important part of Crown series, although I will admit the 2 models that we don't get here in North America are the one I really like. One is called the Crown Sedan in Japan. It has a more of a traditional 3-box design for a sedan. And that one came out because a lot of the dealer principals in Japan complained that they really need a traditional looking Crown for the traditional market. And they also have the Crown Sport, which kind of looks like a cross between Porsche Macan and the Ferrari SUV, from the front at least. And that one is probably the best looking Crown, but not the most economical and not the most practical. But I gotta admit, my heart goes to those 2 models because I think they are the best looking of the 4 models. But anyway, who's complaining? At least we have 2 models of the Crown here. And for the years, I never thought Toyota would ever bring back the Crown name here in North America. So I'm super excited. But how good is the quality? Well, this one is built in Tsutsumi plant in Japan. Actually, all the Crown models are built in Japan right now. And I can tell you that this Crown has exceptional quality. I've done some reviews already on it, but I just wanted to do a little bit more of a proper check on the quality this time. So I'm gonna do a little bit more thorough check. So 3mm there, 3.1mm here on the top, completely aligned and flush. Even the corner here looks really good where it's hard to match sometimes. The doors are 3.1mm there, and moving along 3.2mm and 3.1mm. So the gaps are very consistent with what you will find in actually Lexus models. Not too many Toyota models has 3mm gaps, so keep that in mind. Most Toyota models are kind of 3.5 to 4mm, although I do admit many of the models coming from Tahara factory, which produces vehicles like the 4Runner and the Lexus GX, they're all about the same as this, 3mm to 3.3mm or so. So really good quality. What about the paint quality? Well, this is a new color, and I really like this new blue-gray color, but what about the actual paint thickness? 127 microns there, front fender, 139. This is steel, by the way. And this one is aluminum. You can actually tell just by feeling it because it's quite soft and wobbly. That's one of the complaints people have, is if you have aluminum hood and you have a big hood like what you find in Land Cruiser, they tend to flutter a little bit on highway, and that's always a bit of a complaint. I'm pretty sure this door is also steel. It is 124 microns. Wow, it's so consistent. And the back, 134, and then the rear quarter fender, 128. Also steel. And the roof is hard to measure because it's mostly sunroof here, but let's try here. 122 microns, and it's also steel. So only the hood is aluminum, which surprised me a little bit, but all the paint thickness shows kind of 122 to 126 range, give or take. And that's about 10% thicker than what I see in normal Toyota models. Usually they're between 100 to 120 microns, so a little bit thicker paint. Really, really consistent quality. Some orange peel throughout, but actually less than what you'll find in typical Toyota model. I mean, it's a Crown after all. They really had to check it. I would assume that the quality control for the Crown will be about the same level as what they would do at a Lexus plant, just because of the nameplate. And I'm sure Akio Toyota, who resurrected this nameplate, want to make sure that the Crown has the highest quality. So really good quality outside. Let me just take a look at the engineering also. You got a big bumper here, all the way to here, so that's all plastic. And actually this is a clever engineering, because if you actually hit the corner here, which many people do, most likely the plastic will bounce back if it's a minor impact, saving you from body work, because obviously it's easier to replace the plastic one or repair the plastic one because you just have to take one off and put a new one on. Whereas on steel panels, if you hit it, it's not going to bounce back, it's going to just dent. So good design overall. All the parts looks really good if you look at the fit of that. And this glossy black plastic trims, also really well made. I can tell it's a super high quality just by looking at the paint job, but also the fit and finish. What about the rest of the vehicle? Well, let's take a look inside and see if it's any good in terms of quality control. So I'm going to do a bit more thorough check on this Crown Signia, because I've done a traditional review already on it, but really want to focus on quality control for this particular video. I will talk about the driving too, but also from a quality perspective. So you can tell that if you look at some of the components and the details behind it, that the quality is really at the same level as Lexus. So if you actually look at the gaps between the parts, if you also touch and see how the buttons feel, I mean, it's really one notch above normal Toyota models. Things like a power window switches and power seat controls are basically same as what you find in Toyota. But if you look at the actual pattern of the molding, the plastic molding that is, you'll see that it's a little bit different from what you'll find in the typical Toyota models, like in the Highlander or let's say RAV4, because the grains are much more convincing as fake leather. So these are obviously plastic or vinyl, but they look like leather because of the actual texture that they have. And same thing here as well. Like all the parts fit really well. Nothing is out of place. This bronze finish looks fantastic. The gloss plast looks absolutely fantastic as well, with no defects. And just overall, the feel is not super luxurious, but it's very upscale in terms of the overall design, the engineering behind it, the quality control. I mean, as I mentioned, if this one had a Lexus nameplate, it wouldn't look out of place, because it looks, to me at least, as good as what you'll find in a Lexus RX, let's say. That's a good comparison between this and that one. The RX is a little bit roomier, a little bit bigger, but for all intents and purposes, the overall quality and the feel of the switches and the feel of all the controls are at the same level as Lexus, and a little bit better than what you'll find in a cheaper Toyota model, such as, again, Highlander or Grand Highlander or RAV4. I mean, I reviewed all of those vehicles, and honestly, the feel of the switches and everything, even to turn the headlight on and off and put on the auto, that kind of stuff, has a slightly better feel. So I think the quality control is really good. Does that actually translate to better, more solid feel when you drive this vehicle? Well, let me take it on the road and tell you more perspective in terms of the overall quality control. Not so much about how good the engine is and that kind of stuff, I mean, because I talked about that in the past, but I want to talk about whether or not I feel that everything is coming together to give you that solid feel where you don't hear any kind of squeaks or rattles, and the whole thing feels rock solid. So let me show you on the drive. All right, so I have the Crown on the road now, and you guys have seen some of my reviews already on the Toyota Crown Signia, but I really wanted to focus on whether or not a really good quality control translates into a feel on the road. So if you were to drive this Crown, let's say for argument's sake you compare it to a Toyota Highlander, for example, or a Grand Highlander. Both are built in Indiana, Princeton factory, or the RAV4, which is built in Ontario, or some other models built in Japan too. So for example, maybe a Land Cruiser. And even though Land Cruiser is built in Japan, because it's a new model, I found that it has some quality issues that I've noticed when I owned it. Whereas this Crown here has a substantial feel that is lacking in some other Toyota models. So if you drive any of those Toyota models and then you drive the Crown, even though this is not a powerful vehicle, in fact it's a little bit gutless, it has that sense of presence. It has a sense of that feel that I think only Crown series have it. I think they spent extra time making sure that the Crown feels like a Crown, which means it has really gone through the same level of quality check as the Lexus models. I think it really does feel like Lexus. People talk about it all the time. And when the Crown Signia first came out, I gotta admit, it didn't feel as substantial as this one here, because now they had a chance to get rid of all the bugs, and this thing feels really solid. So it's really quiet in here until you step on the gas, and because it's a 2.5 liter naturally aspirated 4 with the hybrid, you know, you feel some engine noise, but it's very muted. And just the basic feel of the steering, the transmission, the braking, the acceleration, the whole thing feels like someone has gone over it 3 or 4 times to make sure that there is no issues. Obviously no squeaks, no rattles, and there's a kind of sense of this hush feel that's part of Crown's legacy. Because I still remember getting into my friends' families' Crown models in Japan. They always feel so amazing. In Japan, of course, they use Crown for taxis too, or they used to, but those are different models from the one you buy for consumers. And so you can't really compare those Crowns to the one that you buy in Japan, but some private taxi actually use the non-commercial version of the Crown, which is the one that we buy as consumers. And once in a while I get to have a ride in older Crown that's non-commercial version, so the one that we actually buy. And they're super quiet and super silky smooth. Again, much like Lexus, really not a whole lot of difference between the feel of this and either Lexus RX or Lexus ES, because this is kind of like in between the RX and ES. It's not quite a full crossover or SUV, but it's also not quite a sedan by any means. It really is a station wagon, which is why they call it Crown Estate in Japan. It's a station wagon design, so low profile, it sits nice and low, it has a low center of gravity, and therefore it feels stable, and it feels more like driving a luxury sedan than, let's say, a Lexus RX, because that one sits a little bit taller. So overall, for me, I actually would prefer to buy this over the Lexus RX unless I really need the extra space, because RX is obviously roomier with more cargo space. But this one is more to my liking, because first of all, I love station wagons, the whole concept of having a low profile sedan format with more capacity in the back through the station wagon design. And secondly, this Crown Signia by far is one of the best looking crossovers anywhere. Compare this to any crossovers out there, and this one feels sleek. It looks like a European model, looks more like along the line of BMW 3 Series and Mercedes C-Class estates or wagons that we used to have. It's along the same line. So I think it was really designed for European market, and yet we get it in North America. So I'm still very surprised that we have the Crown Estate or Crown Wagon or Crown Signia, however you want to call it, in North America, instead of bringing the Crown Sport, which is more like a shrunken version of a typical SUV, or the Crown Sedan, which is sold in Japan, not sold in North America, and that one looks more like a traditional sedan compared to the Crown we get here, which is called crossover elsewhere, not to confuse you, because the Crown crossover, or however you want to call it, has a crossover design, but it actually has a trunk. So it's very confusing, and I'm not sure what the logic was behind how they decide which model will go to which country. But I have a feeling that the remaining 2 Crown models might still show up in North America, because that was Akio Toyoda's dream, is to bring all the Crown models to all the countries. Well, at least that's what he implied in a number of interviews he did. So I'm really hoping that we'll get the Crown Sport, which is my favorite, or the Crown Sedan, which is available in hybrid or fuel cell. So that one is also really cool looking. But most of all, I'm disappointed that we don't have the plug-in hybrid version of this Crown Signia, which they have in Japan as well. So there's some iterations, some different trims and models that we don't get in North America, but we should actually get them, because how cool would it be to have a Crown Signia plug-in hybrid, or of course my favorite Crown Sport plug-in hybrid. So those are models I'm hoping that Toyota will bring. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video where I focus a little bit more on quality control and the feel of the vehicle from a quality perspective, as opposed to a traditional car review, because I really wanted to take a look at the Crown Signia from a different perspective for this particular video. If you enjoyed my video, please give me a thumbs up and make some comments, and I would really appreciate it if you can subscribe, because many of you guys watch my video but are not subscribers. Anyhow, until next video, I'm signing off for now. Thank you so much.